So guess what's happening with your stimulus checks? Nancy Pelosi appeared on daytime talk shows. So that's apparently what you do when you don't give people their stimulus checks. You go on daytime talk shows to talk about the stimulus checks, which you haven't given people yet. And so she was asked on The View, what does she think about stimulus checks? And she says, the president just wants to sound stimulus checks with his name on it to get himself reelected. That doesn't crush the virus. Doesn't crush the virus. Doesn't crush the virus. It appears that's her new catchphrase. Chewing going hungry has gotten a little stale. So now crush the virus is her new catchphrase, which is sort of ironic. I saw them at the Roxy once opening. They are a very good cover band for Led Zeppelin songs. The big hair. Crush the virus. They have a really good drummer in the band as well. But needless to say, she also talked about mental health. Yeah, I just insert your joke here. So I don't know. I do practice medicine on the side without the benefit of a diploma. It's sort of like I practice being Speaker of the House on the side without being elected to her position. So as a mother and grandmother, I do practice medicine on the side, but I haven't gone into mental health yet. Well, it's only Wednesday. Give it a couple more days. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Afternoons at LALATE in a really hilarious and yet very sad afternoon in which Nancy Pelosi and Steve Mnuchin apparently don't even know what their negotiations are about anymore. And they're having to ask each other, wait, what did we do with that thing again? Can you remind me, Nancy? More about that in a second. If you've not subscribed, go to the Funnest channel, subscribe, because I have breaking news across the board about your stimulus check, FPUC, hazard pay, and crushing the virus as well. Also like this video because there'll be a crushed soda that comes at the end of the video. Let me get to the breaking news. In this video, I'll be going over the new inroads about the Senate, issues about standalone bills, questions about stimulus checks, Wall Street and its reaction, and why recovery is sort of mixtured in all this entire thing. And finally, why your reaction, the Purple Power, has really pushed the situation to a forefront. First, let me go over the Senate. The issue with the Senate still remains front and center, and a lot of very good news reporters, including David Faber on CNBC this morning, said, you know what, I can hear all this about these people and those people, but the bottom line is the Senate does not want to put this up for a vote. They have said we are in recess to October 19th, and no one's really changing that. Thank you, David. It's David and the viewers of this channel who apparently keep the core focus, which is the Senate's closed. And until someone resolves the issue of the fact that the Senate's closed, they're not taking reservations. There's no takeout. I don't even think you would want to eat something from Mitch McConnell's kitchen, but there is no takeout. There's no take-in, and so there could be no bill. So I don't know why the president is on social media talking about bills when the Senate's closed. Next. Wall Street has a very strange reaction, and its reaction is certainly tied to these comments by the president about the standalone bills. Now, I gotta have a laugh with you. I just, it is a strange day when a kid in California with purple shirts and nice hair, with a YouTube channel that's 5 months old, and his viewers, everywhere from mom and pops to single moms to small business owners, know more about the stimulus negotiations than the negotiators themselves. I'm not going to exaggerate what happened today. Steve Mnuchin was told by President Trump, please consider a standalone bill for the airlines, Steve. Oh, okay, I'll call Nancy. And so he called Nancy Pelosi. He said, Nance, this is Steve. Remember me from yesterday? We were told not to talk. Well, I was told to call you now. Yeah, apparently they're now talking again. And he said, why don't we consider standalone bills, Nancy, for the airlines? And she's like, Steve, we did consider that. And you had a bill, but you didn't want it. I mean, it's really sort of ridiculous that the people who are actually negotiating now, that they don't even recall what they're negotiating about. If you don't remember, I think you do. I just don't think Steve Mnuchin, who's tuning in, doesn't remember. So this is for Steve. I see you tuning in, Steve. The airlines had a deadline, and that deadline helped our deadline effectively. They were in the stimulus package, the airlines, and they had an August 1st, excuse me, now they're making me do it. They had an October 1st deadline to get stimulus relief passed. By jumping into the stimulus package that had your stimulus check, there was an October 1st deadline. Well, we were all excited because these were people that were very rich and very heavily pushed by lobbyists, pushing for the stimulus package to get done by October 1st. Needless to say, Nancy not only ignored the deadline, but on October 2nd said, hey, can you not fire those people you fired on October 1st? They're like, we already fired them, Nancy. You were supposed to do this by October 1st. As the days progressed, Nancy said, you know what, can you bring them back? I'm almost done. She wasn't almost anything. She wasn't even almost pregnant. So what happened, ironically, in 1 week's time, it started with Steve Mnuchin on Squawk Box saying we would not support separate bills. This is I'm speaking on behalf of the White House. We're not doing separate bills. We're doing one bill. By Thursday, the press secretary to Donald Trump, the one that has COVID now as well, she said, hey, you know what, we'll do separate bills, and we may even do it by executive orders, especially for stimulus checks and for the airlines. Okay, well, Nancy Pelosi took the same progression. She started on the week by saying we're not going to do separate bills, we're going to do all part of the package, thank God. And then by the end of the week, she's like, maybe we'll do a separate package. Meantime, Senator Collins and Senator Wickers were like, hello, we had a standalone bill for the airlines, and you sort of ignored that we existed. So people always ask me, why don't they do a standalone bill for stimulus checks? Why don't they do a standalone bill for FPUC? The answer might be, maybe they did and they just lost it. Going to the next part, Wall Street thinks that the stimulus package is still going to get done. Now, these are a lot of rich people and a lot of smart people, a lot of people with postgraduate degrees and graduate degrees. They have a lot of letters after their name, and they think that a stimulus package is going to get done. So, needless to say, some of them are referring to the other ones and saying the following. John Biggs, head of strategy at NatWest Markets, I'm surprised that everyone's all ready to get a stimulus package approved. This was today. Then said Tom Lee, not Tommy's son, not the drummer, not Pam Anderson's ex-husband. Stimulus isn't going to happen. It's just the timing is just not that clear, and that's a situation where I think the market's going to be able to look through it ultimately. Okay, so that's the negative. Then another one said, I sense a sense of urgency. What did you sense the sense of urgency? October 1st, when the deadline passed. Then another person had some comments today for CNBC. I think the economy is in a rough spot right now because there's a lot of restrictions. People are very unclear. Okay. Then came Chris Rupke at MFU Union Bank. As the markets are highly emotional now, you almost wonder if they got COVID themselves. Okay. That's a little shady. As an economist, I don't know how much stimulus is necessary at this point. Oh, he's definitely on your Christmas list, isn't he? Yeah. Then came others. I think investors should realize this probability not going to be a deal until after November 3rd. Okay, that's a negative. Julian Emanuel at BIT, yet another comment. Trump and his opponents know history. Now, this one's an interesting one. Listen carefully to this one. When the market has been higher in the 90 days before the election, the incumbent has won 86% of the time. Conversely, when the market is down in September and October cumulatively before the election, incumbents have lost 6 out of 6 elections. That's really interesting. The bias remains neutral for a lot of stocks, and Congress controls the purse strings. Can Trump really say, I'm going to get this and that? It just seems like empty words. So we have a whole gamut of people saying different things. Some saying yes, some saying no, some saying false positives, some saying the president just using political theater to get himself reelected, and maybe we should turn into a YouTube channel. Who said that this morning to you? It sort of sounds like a lot of people are watching this channel, then going on CNBC and giving their opinion. But what's interesting is that Trump may ultimately be betting on certain parts of the economy doing well and you not doing well. And I got to say that in the kindest words. As I said this morning, Trump may be looking at Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's doing very, very well and trading up every single day all the way into the day of the election. Say, hey, if they're up, I'm going to win. And that ultimately you're sitting here like, I'm not Walmart. I'm just Wall. I'm just Target. I'm one person. How about me? And he may not be considering you. And so people always ask me, why have he not done executive orders? That might be one of the reasons right there. Next, $1,200 stimulus checks. Why have people just not gotten a standalone bill for $1,200 stimulus checks? I have done the whole gamut for this. I have written the bill for the standalone bill for the $1,200 stimulus checks and tweeted to Mnuchin and Meadows and said, here's a standalone bill for the $1,200 stimulus checks. Then I said, hey, try to get me to have a meeting with Meadows, certainly not in the White House, maybe outside in an open air where there's a lot of fans blowing. But I will fly in to speak with Mark Meadows if he'll take a meeting to speak with him about, and argue for stimulus checks and FPUC for you. I even had one person once email me about a week ago saying he had a private jet and he would fly me to DC to actually have the meeting. The only problem is we first need the meeting schedule before I start flying anywhere. Pelosi, of course, today spoke about your stimulus checks and didn't think they were very important. Surprise, surprise. All he's ever wanted in the negotiations was to send out a check with his name printed on it, she told The View today. Forget about the virus, forget about our heroes. Well, that's ironic. She's the one who took out frontline workers, hazard pay, Nancy, wake up. Forget about our children and the need to go to school safely and the rest. He's just about rebounding from a terrible mistake he made yesterday. And the Republicans of Congress were going down the drain with him on that. Wow, nice visual imagery. Okay. Now, said another comment today, Ed Mills, Washington policy analyst at Raymond James, the first move is up to the Senate at this point, which is what I started with. The Senate needs to make a plan. There truly needs to be pressure on the House to act, and then Pelosi would demand, knowing the Senate was going to do something, but at the moment the Senate doesn't appear it's going to be doing anything. There's a case where you're dropping, okay, then there's this twist. Boy, I have not even gone over this one. There's always something. There's a case where you're dropping in an immigration debate in the middle of a fiscal relief negotiation package. There's a whole issue about eligibility for the second stimulus checks that Nancy put in the scope of the negotiations with Steve Mnuchin last week that may ultimately be the reason why Steve Mnuchin didn't agree to the phrasing of the stimulus checks. We're only a couple of days from the election, and the kind of reviving immigration politics as part of that makes extremely difficult to do anything. Interesting. As you sit here today at the 11-minute mark, what is important to understand? What's important to understand is to get stimulus relief, to get a stimulus check, you need a couple of things to happen, and this is why the purple power is really stepping up. First, you need pressure on the president to do it by executive order. The president should be doing this by executive order. It's enough already, Mr. President. He has identified $300 billion that he can send out for stimulus checks. Do it. He has identified $150 billion that's sitting around for FPUC in comments he made overnight. Do it. He's identified this money, and then he says he wants to send out the money, and he's been saying this for upwards of 6 months. Do it. It's gotten to the point that the viewers of this channel are certainly aware of his ability to do it, his financial ability to do it, his constitutional authority to do it. He just hasn't done it. And that talking about Nancy, who simply does not want to do a stimulus check standalone bill, is deflection. Do it yourself, Mr. President. Next, Purple Power also needs to focus on cease for stimulus. Kick these people out. Kick them all out. Every incumbent that's on the list, make it very clear they're all gone. They're all gone when you go to vote because they did not give you stimulus. Now, there's that wonderful representative from Arizona who I tweeted earlier today, and I'll tweet it again. And she said, you know what, in March, I don't think anyone should ever get paid as a congressional leader if they don't send out people's stimulus. They didn't do their work, so why should they get paid? I co-sign that as well. Additionally, there is another path to getting stimulus relief done, but I don't see where it could happen at the moment, and that is, well, I'm having problems seeing where it could happen at the moment, and that is the president ordering Mitch to vote remotely in the Senate. Remember, the Senate cannot vote on a stimulus bill. It's closed. Mitch is closed until October 19th, which means we have to wait a few more weeks. And ultimately, the president can order the Senate open, but he's not going to do it because there are people that are sick. But he could open it for remote voting. The problem is Mitch can't do it himself. The change of the laws of the Senate from normal voting to remote voting requires a change of the Senate laws. The president can do it by executive order. Now, the fact that the Senate does meet remotely is different than remote voting. So let me make that very clear, because all next week there will be remote appearances for conferences for the judiciary nominee. That is not the same as voting. Finally, are negotiations really back on? Or what's going on? Why is Steve calling Nancy again? It appears that Steve and Nancy are still talking, but in a very sort of ineffective, sort of superfluous manner. Sort of like how they were doing it before. Their last chats were about 50 minutes each. Wasn't even a full hour. They never really spent any time changing on numbers. They never spent any time on modifying anything dramatically. All they were doing was like, can you explain this to me? And can you explain that to me? Okay, now we understand it. I don't agree, but thank you for explaining it to me. See you tomorrow, another 50 minutes. Well, today they did much the same, and it wasn't even 50 minutes. Can you explain to me, Nancy, what we're doing with the airlines? You didn't want a standalone bill with the airlines. Oh. What could we do a standalone bill with the airlines? Well, check back with me tomorrow. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye. That's basically their scope of working. And they're paid, six figures to do that. 3,000 comments from yesterday. Let's get to the 3,000 comments. Angela, take their money and try to have them managed like we are. Amen. Joseph P. Purple Power, activate. Yes, Purple Power, activate. Let's flood them in a bug all night long. Let's get retroactive checks. Richard Harris. I can summarize the entire federal government up to this point. Dirty Rods and Scoundrels 2020. I love that. Catherine Pippin. Today is 10/5/20. I heard the president said no stimulus checks. God only knows this. My heart aches. Catherine. He promised a big stimulus check before. Now he wants to hold off till after we elect him. What are the people? They're all losing our lives, jobs. That won't come back. Sefraf Lazuli. He isn't doing executive orders because he doesn't want stimulus until after the election. Okay, so this comment was 19 hours ago. So these comments were after the first tweet by the president, but before the later tweets. And let me make very clear, because I'm starting to see in some of the tweets, he doesn't want to do executive orders because he doesn't want stimulus until after the election. That was not the tweet. The tweet was he doesn't want negotiations for a stimulus bill until after the election. He did not say he was not going to do stimulus by executive orders. Without money, any jobs. Sooner or later, everyone's trying to build a bank account with no money. Warren. George, is there any way to rob the government blind? Denise, what they're going to do in the big game, they never should have had the intentions to pass in the first place. Diane, I guess the president doesn't really want to be reelected. There's been no executive order for our stimulus. It seems that they're the only ones to receive it. Nicole, I can't believe this. Trump is going to give Biden the win, or he's going to do some type of scare tactic to get Pelosi to come under the $2 trillion. It's a lot of people that need help. Now, that is sad. I think one of the motives for the president is to give a false narrative that the economy is so good and you don't need stimulus. Why do I think that? Because Mark Meadows said it 3 days ago. Larry Kudlow said it the week before. And ultimately, that's only true if you are the owner of Home Depot, or the owner of Lowe's, or the owner of Target or Walmart. Then it's doing really well for you. But everyone else, it's not. Bill Kanika, these SOBs knew what they were doing all along. Mike, every day Trump says something dumber than the day before. Margaret, I could care less about seeing red, blue. I want to see green. Laura, I'm in Idaho starting November. Denise, he actually thinks he can bribe the American people into voting for him. Yeah, he does. Gary, it's time that these it's time like these they show where their true colors are. Amen. Kathy, get Nancy Pelosi out of there and get the people their money, damn it. Dominic, read Trump's most recent tweets. Yeah, I've read them 1,000 times. George Myers, if we knew we were never going to get our stimulus checks, this talking about it every day is making sense. Scott, I'm sure he's just as plan as his career suicide for him. Wait and see. He knows it. Well, as Nancy Pelosi said yesterday, believe me, there's people who thought that the president's steroids have had an impact on his thinking. But I haven't gone into mental health yet. Well, it's only, when's it, 2:30? It's only 2:30. So if you've not gone to the front of the channel, subscribe. Subscribe because, this is a Hot Mess Express. It's a real hot mess express. And it takes a lot of people to decipher and separate things for you. And I'm sorry if you found this channel because other channels told you you're going to get something this week and that check went out this week. Yeah. And this and that. And, ultimately, it's important you understand where we are. It's important to understand that Nancy's bill has not passed the House. It has not passed the Senate. It's not becoming a law. It's important for you to understand the president can do executive orders. It's important for you to understand who did what and what said who, or something like that, during this entire event. So go to the Finance channel, subscribe. Best darn community there is out there. Also like this video. Coming up next is a continuation of this video with more details about why stimulus chats are still occurring. The question is whether they're really effective or not. And can the president really get this back on track right away? And does he want to? As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay alive for more.